Hi class, today we are on Saxon Book 4, Lesson 50, and this is part 2 of our adding and subtracting decimal numbers lessons. So, first I want to draw your attention over here to my little place value chart. Notice I have a decimal point right there in the middle, and when we're reading decimal numbers, we read these numbers, then we say and we read these numbers and say their place value. We'll talk about that more in the future. Just wanted to review it for today. So you guys are very, very familiar with ones, tens, hundreds. We've got that down. And many of you are even pretty proficient with tenths and hundredths. When I talk about this with my own personal children at home, I spit all over them. I go tenths, hundredths, and then they go, Mom, and try to get away from me. But that's what we're talking about. It sounds a lot like tens, but it's not. You have to spit to say this one, tenths. This sounds a lot like hundreds, but it's not. Again, with that THS, you're kind of all over everybody when you talk about these place values. Okay? And these place values are not whole numbers. They're pieces of a whole. They're fractions of a whole. Decimals is another way to write fraction pieces. It's just a different form. We write it as a decimal instead of a fraction. All right, so the first type of example we're going to do has to do with all of these numbers. I want you to tell me what place value the 3 is in each of these problems. So start with 23 and 4/10. What place value is the 3 in? Here, it's in the ones. If you said ones, you are absolutely correct. What about 2 and 34/100? Where's the 3 in that one? It's right here. This is the tenths. Here we have 32 and 400. What place value is the 3 in? Here it's in the tens. Notice the difference. Here we have THS at the end. Here we just have S at the end. And finally, 4 and 23/100. What place value is my 3 in? It's in the hundredths. And there you have it, folks. All right, our next example is going to be adding some decimal numbers. So, there's a trick to this. Just like we want to line up our place values when we're adding whole numbers, we need to do the same thing when we're adding decimal numbers. Not only do we want to line up the ones, the tens, the hundreds, but we have to line up all our tenths and all our hundredths. So in the book, the problem looks like this. 3 and 75/100 plus 12 and 5/10 plus 2 and 47/100. Look at this ugly horizontal problem. We don't want to leave it like that. We want to line up our place values nice and neat on our paper. So I'll start with my 3 and 75/100. The best way that I have found to do this is to start with your decimal. If you make sure to line up all of your decimals, then the rest of your place values will fall into place naturally. So with 12 and 5/100, my decimals here, I have a 12 on this side, I have a 5 on this side, and there's nothing here. So here's my other trick. Let's put a 0 as a placeholder, because what digit tells us that there's nothing? 0. So if you have some blank space here, but you have more digits in another number that you're adding or subtracting, you can just stick that 0 in there. Doesn't change the value. 12 and 5/10 is the same amount as 12 and 50/100. So doesn't change the value at all, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to line everything up and add it together. Then 2 will go right there to the left of the decimal, and 47 will go to the right. And now that I've got everything nice, neat, all my place values are lined up, now it's just a simple addition problem. 5 and 7 gives me 12. Can I make a 10 here? Oh, I see I can actually. 5 and 1 is 6, and 6 plus 4 is 10. So 10 plus 7 gives me 17. Can't make a 10 here. I like to just start with the biggest one. 3, 5, 7, 8. Nothing to carry, and then my 1 there. Now, is my answer 1,872? Absolutely not. Decimal point, decimal point, decimal point. I need a decimal point in my answer as well. So 18 and 72/100 would be our first answer. Okay, the next problem is also written horizontally, so just looking at it, I know we're going to change it right away. We have 4 and 25/100 minus 2 and 5/10. So right away, don't like that. I want to line up my decimal points. 2 and 5/10. I have this big empty space here. Let's fill in a 0, and don't forget, in this problem, we're going to subtract, not add. So 5 minus 0 gives me 5. 2 minus 5 gives me 3, right? No, I cannot take 5 away from 2. If I have 2 cookies, I can't give you 5, so I have to borrow. This works exactly like borrowing with any other subtraction problem you do. You go to the next place value, cross it out, borrow 1, and then you bring it over here. So now we have 12/10 minus 5/10, and that'll give us 7/10. 3 minus 2 gives me 1. Don't forget your decimal point, and here is your answer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in my class, we're going to meet a little bit later today. You need to do the lesson activity. It's number 25. The top right corner will have a little 25. It's included in your lesson plan packet this week. And I want you to finish that before we meet later today, because we will be looking at that and going over the answers to that when we meet in person as a class. Well, virtually in person as a class. So that is what you're completing for your lesson practice. If you are not my student, then you can go ahead and do the lesson practice that is in your book on page 319 and have a parent check your answers once you're done to make sure that you understand this topic completely. After you have finished that, then you can go ahead and start your written practice, which also begins on page 319 of your textbook. Have a great day. I'll see you again soon.